We had to shift gears during COVID. We were teaching, seminars, and then COVID hit, so we had to find another source of income. And so we bought a business and we moved trailer homes. You know, those big old honking trailer homes that are going down the freeways, that's us. And we remodeled them. And my son, my 14-year-old, can now run the crew. He's working with 50-year-old men. And it's because I always talked up to them. I always spoke to them as if they were already at the place where God wanted them. So little tip for how to relate to boys if you have a lot of boys in your life. So I'm going to be speaking on girls. But before we do, we're going to just have a little, get to know each other a little bit better. So parenting is an art. It's not a science. It is an art of depending on the Holy Spirit. And so we're going to do a little practical thing to see what exactly does that mean? What does that look like? So if everybody can put their thumb up like this. So you're either going to put your thumb up if you agree and put your thumb down if you disagree, okay? So the first question is, okay, is it morally wrong? Or if it's morally wrong, put your thumb down. If it's okay, keep your thumb up. Slapping your child. Okay, what if your child is about to hit the stove and she's 2 years old and you slap her hand? Okay. Yelling at your child. What if your child is walking in front of a train and you're yelling at them and grabbing them to stop, right? Okay, so what about running over your son's cell phone on purpose to destroy it? Okay, which is actually what I did. My son, we had given him a cell phone, and it became an idol. And I wanted my son to learn that the God says, "Thou shalt have no other gods before me." And so one day I grabbed his phone and went and put it under the tire, and I ran over it 2 or 3 times. And I want you to know that made such an impression on my son. He's in college, he's 21 years old. He has a Gab phone. Do y'all know what those are? Gab phones are phones that only text and take phone calls. He does not want a video game as a constant companion. He does not want anything to defile his mind. He's probably the only kid on campus with a Gab phone. If you need one, go to gab.com and you can get your kids a safe cell phone. But so as you can see, parenting is an art, and we can go from one spectrum to the other depending on the situation. The situation will require you to behave in a different way. So there's no formula for parenting. It is a definite dependence on the Holy Spirit to guide you each moment of every day. There's many days when I say, "Lord, I don't know what to do." Maybe my boys, when they were younger, were bickering. And I would just stand there and I'd get really quiet, and my boys are like, "What are you doing, Mom?" "I'm just praying and asking the Lord for wisdom." And they'd immediately get quiet and they'd stop fighting. And so definitely the Lord is our Father. He parents you, and we are to parent as He parents. So I'm going to take a minute and pray before I enter into this next talk on girls, what's happening to our girls. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for this amazing opportunity we have to talk about young ladies and girls and their hearts. Their hearts are precious. They are beautiful in your sight. They're lovely. And I pray that you give us your eyes to see them the way you see them, to treat them the way you love them with an everlasting love. And I pray that we would be able to pour that love out on them and begin seeing a transformation in their hearts. We ask all this in your name. Amen. With the introduction of feminism and the sexualization of women through pornography, unfortunately, the blueprint for being a real woman has been lost. We are not able to pass this on to young women. And so the question is, will the real woman please stand up? Because we've lost the blueprint. What's happening is young girls are being segregated. Back in the day, girls used to get together and have sewing circle, would have cooking events together, and there would be 3 generations. You'd have the grandma, you'd have the mother, and you'd have the daughter. And as the grandma and the mom were talking, they would be passing on life lessons. They'd be talking about different things, what it meant to be a woman. That is no longer. We have segregation at school, and unfortunately sometimes in church, never the twain shall meet, never shall the elderly in our churches fellowship with the young children. We keep them segregated, we keep them in separate places. And I really believe that one of the goals that God has for us is to begin the older women passing on the blueprint to us women so we can pass it on to our children once again. There are some things that have hijacked it, and we're going to go through that today. So, but first, when you're studying counterfeit versus the real thing, you have to study the real thing. You know, when they're looking at dollar bills, they're not looking at the fake. They're looking at the real thing to evaluate what is the fake in the situation. So let's take a minute and just see what is a true young lady, a true girl in the eyes of the Lord. So she is gentle and soft, but strong. She is capable and competent, but humble and teachable. She's nurturing and caring for others from an overflow of love deep within her heart. She's intelligent, but focused more on her heart than her intellect. She's beautiful through Christ, and she's peaceful, stable, and forgiving. There are a couple scriptures in the Bible that talk about what it means to be a young lady. The king's daughter is all glorious within in Psalms. Charm is deceitful, beauty is vain, but a woman who pleases the Lord, who fears the Lord, she shall be praised. And actually, the whole chapter of Proverbs 31 is a wonderful chapter to describe womanhood. And then this is one of my favorites. But let it be the inner beauty of the hidden person of the heart, with the imperishable quality and unfading charm of a gentle and peaceful spirit. One that is calm and self-controlled, not over-anxious, but serene and spiritually mature, which is very precious in the sight of God. And the key word that we're going to focus on there, not over-anxious, but serene and spiritually mature. We're going to blow this out a little bit more, because I believe that one of the most defining characteristics for young ladies nowadays is anxiety. How many of y'all would agree with that? How many of y'all have girls, first of all? Girl moms here? The girl dads here? Okay, good. Like I said earlier, girls live in a girl world 99% of the time. So in a way, it's the blind leading the blind. You have young girls that are crying on each other's shoulders. They're reading girl blogs. They're in this world immersed where they're getting all of their wisdom from peers their own age. They no longer have the wisdom of older women pouring into them. And there's 4 factors driving the new crisis for young ladies. And I'm going to go very, very brief. Our time is very short with you. So if you want to go into more detail, I'm going to be introducing a few topics. I will not go into a lot of detail in some of these, but if you want more detail, I highly recommend Girls on the Edge. This is a doctor in Pennsylvania, Washington, D.C. area. He was a doctor for over 20 years, and he watched from 1996 all the way up to 2016, and he watched the young girls come in as babies and leave as 20-year-olds, and he saw the progression, he saw the changes in their lives. And he is a Christian, and so a very wonderful book. I highly recommend getting this if you have daughters. The question we really need to begin by asking ourselves is, what does the heart of a young girl really want? What do you think a girl really wants? Anybody want to give any suggestions? I heard some whispers. Anybody want to say it? Security. Okay, security. Anybody else? Romance. Thank you. Yes. Yes, attention. That's a huge one. Anything else? Acceptance and love. You guys got it. You covered it. Approval, acceptance, love, and connection. Part of love / romance. Okay? So where do they go? Where do they go to get these things? The number one place that they're going is the cyber bubble. So let's blow this out and take a look and see exactly what is happening in the cyber bubble. The cyber bubble, first of all, is the world's answer for these needs, but it is incredibly destructive. It is destroying their souls. They don't see it. They do not see it, and we have to see it for them, and we have to protect them. And I'm going to give you some clues and some tips. These are the problems that the cyber bubble is creating. First of all, you have anxiety, which increases as social bonds decrease. So already we're talking about, they're developing friendships with one another, but unfortunately, how are they talking to each other? The little squirrel fingers, right, on their phones. They're amazing at texting, aren't they? They can do this little thing and they're done. And I'm like, doot, 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 doot. So it increases anxiety because they are not bonding. They're not looking in each other's eyes. The other thing is there is bullying going on the internet, and I'm sure so many of y'all have experienced that, your daughters, or have been exposed to that. And this book will go into detail if you want to hear more about it. ADHD. So let me tell you a story. This doctor had a young lady who came in who'd been given ADHD medication. She was an AB student, but she'd started making C's and D's and failing. She could not concentrate, she could not focus, and they were trying to get to the bottom of why, so they gave her ADHD medication. She ended up having heart palpitations, all kinds of medical problems. Here she is, 16 years old. Well, this doctor, when she finally came to Dr. Sachs, he began to ask her more questions. So tell me about your sleeping. She said, well, I go to bed at 1, and I wake up at 6, and then I go by Starbucks and get coffee before I go to school. And okay, and what do you do when you get home? Well, I take a couple pictures and post on social media, and then what do you do then? And then I just check my social media all evening and try to get a little schoolwork done here and there. What had happened is social media, the cyber bubble, had hijacked her brain. It had removed her ability to focus and to concentrate. And she could not sit down and read a book like she used to because the phone kept dinging. And even in the middle of the night, the phone would ding and she'd wake up, check to see, who posted or somebody sent her a text. She'd go back to sleep. It was creating ADHD symptoms, and the first doctor had given her medication, which was now causing her problems. What the doctor said is, you need to turn off your phone at 10, put it in your parents' bathroom, plug it in there to charge, do not touch it till the next morning. You need to get more sleep, you need to have certain hours that you're on your phone and put it away otherwise. She was furious. She was so mad at her parents. But the parents knew that they were in charge, they were responsible, and they would do whatever necessary to help their daughter. So they took responsibility. She was screaming and kicking the whole way, but little by little she began to follow her parents' lead, and at the end of 6 weeks, her ADHD symptoms were gone. She had no issues with medication. She did not have ADHD. It was the cyber bubble that was creating this problem. The other thing is sexting. 1 out of 4 girls, according to Dr. Sachs, have involved in sexting, sending a message or taking a picture. You can read more about that in the book. And then celebrity status. So these young ladies who get involved into social media take pictures of themselves, take pictures, it can take hours to take these pictures, and then they put them up on the screens and they wait for the likes. And how many of y'all have seen The Social Dilemma? Okay, so you know what I'm talking about, the young girl that gets made fun of in the movie, in the documentary, she gets made fun of and she's absolutely devastated. The suicide rates have gone up. I don't know if y'all are aware of that, but the suicide rates in young ladies has gone up. It has gone up since social media. And you know who it's affecting the most? It's preteens. So 10 to 14-year-old girls, since social media came out, has gone up 100. Suicide rates have gone up 151%. 15 to 19-year-olds has gone up 70%. So it's a serious situation. What's happening is, when I talk about the celebrity status, is think back to when you were a kid. No kid wants to grow up to be a generic adult, right? We all have big dreams of what we're going to do, but unfortunately 99.9% of us live very normal lives. Only 0.1% end up celebrities, end up with their face on People magazine, end up being in a band that travels the world. And so what happens is, when the child finally hits a place of, oh wow, I'm just going to be a normal person, I'm not going to be a celebrity, they begin to do something, especially young ladies, to create an environment where they can be a celebrity, they can feel special, they can deal with the normalcy, the boringness of life, and that's called obsessions, and that's the second factor. So the first one we covered was the cyber bubble. The second one we have here is obsessions, and I'm going to go through these. Okay. You took your phone, right, Mike? You have the phone? Okay. So what happens is, when we don't, I'm going to pick this up and hold this. Okay. So when we don't provide our students, our girls, with a richer and multidimensional understanding of true life, boys will find solace in video games, like we learned from the video games that Mike was talking about, and the girls plunge into real-world obsessions. This is what girls will turn into. Eating disorders, anorexia, bulimia, and it can flip-flop. One year it can be anorexia, one year it can be bulimia. And I just want you to know that a lot of this, when I began doing this research, this was so far-fetched for me. I had a hard time believing most of this. I couldn't believe that this is the world that our young ladies are growing up in. How many of you all grew up in a pretty happy, normal environment growing up? Okay, most of us, right? This generation is facing things that we never have ever dreamed that we would have to face, much less that they have to face. So when Mike and I give these talks, they're pretty heavy, but I think that we need to know what they are because we want to be equipped to know what our students and our young ladies are dealing with. So eating disorders, athletics, this is the young lady that as she eats and sleeps and drinks, everything is maybe soccer, volleyball, football, not football, volleyball, basketball, and she can even keep pushing herself even though she's hurt. That's a young lady who has turned it into an obsession. Academics, some young ladies push so hard to get into Harvard, they don't get in, they fall apart. A girl who's really committed to academics. Unfortunately, alcohol, surprisingly, has actually gone up in young ladies. So for boys, alcohol has stayed pretty much the same, binging on alcohol. But for young ladies, over the last 50 years, it's quadrupled. And they're the ones getting pulled over now for drug driving more so than young men. But what's happening is when girls go home, they have this uncanny ability to go home, go to their bedroom, wake up, and get up and go to school and act normal. So they get up, and so parents don't know what's going on. They're not knowing that the young ladies are struggling with this. Cutting, how many of y'all are familiar with this challenge that young ladies are having? So I was really interested, why are these young ladies cutting? What is happening is they want relief from distressing symptoms, such as mounting anxiety. Remember, social relationships are broken, the bond, and so the anxiety increases. They have racing thoughts. Young ladies are facing that because if you think about it, if your world is with your constant companion, which is your phone, a lot can begin happening in your mind. And then their rapidly fluctuating emotions, which comes from, their hormones in addition to the cell phones and everything that's involved with social media. And then, of course, social media. And then the last one is perfectionism, the AKA perfect girl. And this is honestly something I struggled with in college. So I was homecoming queen in both high school and college. And what hit me is I was very much a people pleaser. And so I learned how to be the perfect girl. But I didn't realize that I was living for the world instead of for the Lord. And the Lord had to break me from that. And these young girls, you can recognize it because she's the one who's the captain of the volleyball team. She's senior class president, she's homecoming queen, she has a job, and she makes straight A's. And so this is one of the obsessions that young girls can get into, and we have to recognize and help them. Because what's happening is they have an unsatisfied appetite. There's an appetite for the Lord, there's a deep hole in their heart, and they're looking for the Lord, and they don't realize that. So the third factor that we're going to cover today is sexualization of our girls. So sexuality is good. God created us with this gift that we would enjoy in marriage with one man, and if you're a man, with one woman. But sexualization is bad. This is a quote by Dr. Sachs. Girls and boys seem to believe that the girls parading their unveiled bodies is somehow modern, hip, contemporary. In the past 40 years, the brothel has gone mainstream, so much that many young girls and women do not question the idea that baring their skin is a badge of sexual liberation. And so what's happening is these young ladies are not being taught they don't have to. They think it's chic and modern to not dress modestly. And so what's happening is not only are they dressing immodestly, but because they're just wanting attention. But what it's creating a girl that is sending out the wrong messages. So the young boys think that she's wanting something more than just attention. And so if she gives in, then she gets more attention. If she doesn't, she gets ostracized and pushed away, which therefore now she doesn't have the attention, the acceptance that she so desperately wants. So what's happening is, this is the first time in history, even if you look all throughout all the generations, all the different countries, even the indigenous people in different countries all over the world, sex without commitment or without romance is unprecedented. And that's how it is nowadays. These young ladies are giving those things away. They used to be the gatekeepers. I don't know if y'all heard a song by Meatloaf back in the 1980s. I think, how many of y'all know about a band called Meatloaf? I didn't know there was one until I read this book. Oh good, there's a few of you guys. Oh good, there's 3 of you. So Meatloaf wrote a song, and it was about a girl and a guy, and they were in love with each other, and they were in the back seat, and they were getting hot and heavy, and she immediately says, wait, stop. I will not go any further unless you ask me to marry you. And when this doctor goes around to public schools and he plays that song for the students in these public schools, and when he plays that, the kids think he's crazy. They're like, well, you mean she stopped the guy because she wanted to get married? Wow, that's weird. Doesn't she have birth control? And so this is unprecedented, but this is the mindset that the world, like I said, that we've lost the blueprint. We have not passed on to the next generation that they are the gatekeepers of their purity, that is for one man, for one life. It's not to be given away. This is interesting, and I'm not going to go into detail, but you can read there. Lesbianism is now considered chic. Did y'all know that? How many of y'all know who, let me see, Glennon Doyle is? Okay, 1 person. 2, she was a Christian blogger, mommy blogger. She began to blog, and people would hang on her every word, bought all her books. A very interesting social commentator. She recently left her husband, divorced him, and has married a woman soccer player. And they're on social media all the time, their life together. Oops, thank you. And thank you. And so if you want to learn more about that, you can read in the book. And it's a phenomenon that's happening nowadays. It's chic. It's actually something cool. How many of y'all know that? Okay, y'all are ahead of the times more than me. So yes, it's really sad. It's really sad. So we need to guide our young girls. I'm just waiting for the clicker here. This man is helping me. Thank you so much. Thank you. And what did we talk about? All girls want is attention, closeness, being held, being hugged. And so if you as a father meet those needs for your young lady, and you nurture her spiritually, emotionally, she will not be at risk for all these things that we're talking about. But if you fail to do that, she will begin to substitute it for sexuality or sexualization. So parents, we have to be willing to overrule our daughter's decision regarding what she's wearing. We have to stand our ground. That is the first place. Because whatever she's wearing signals to the boys at school what kind of girl she is. She may be clueless, may not want anything of that nature. She just wants attention. But we have to educate her and let her know that what kind of signals that sends. The last factor is environmental factors, and my husband spoke briefly on that. I'm just going to go real quick. I have 1 slide. Look for cosmetics, shampoos, lotions without phthalates, synthetic chemicals, fragrances, and avoid plastics with BPA, because it makes the young girls develop prematurely, which can cause all kinds of problems for them, which you can imagine, and the book goes into more detail if you want more information there. So that's the problem. That's what we are facing with the young ladies. And so I want to give you a brief action plan. What the couple this morning, what they spoke on, Miss Christie and Mr. Aiden, I think his name was, what they gave was gold. What they gave was gold. If we create those kind of environments in our home, we can combat these factors that boys and girls are facing. So I've added a few extra ones that Miss Christie had, but she covered a lot of them. So we need to bridge the generation. So we need to get the young ladies together with older women. I have a friend, and her name is Amalia. She goes to church here, and she has a girls group that meets every Friday, and I know Naomi over here, her daughters go to it, and they bridge the gaps. They teach them what it means to be a girl, what it means to be a woman, what it means to live for the Lord. They talk about real life issues. We need to begin bridging the gaps, the generational gaps. And Pastor Woods actually spoke on that last week when he was addressing the elderly. He said, please use your time to invest in the next generation. And I love the idea of children coming and worshiping with us and seeing their parents and watching all the generations lifting their hands, worshiping, praising the Lord, opening their Bibles, studying together. I love that idea. Instead of, you think about school, we segregate them. And then sometimes even at church, we segregate them and they never come in to see what a worship experience is like. So if you can bring your kids in, maybe just on occasion to, if they can't sit through the whole sermon, to just see what a worship experience is like, that will be a tremendous blessing to them. And then, of course, instead of just getting empathy, everybody wants a shoulder to cry on, which is what young girls want, but give them wisdom. Don't just, let them cry on your shoulder, but pass on the wisdom, the truths from the Word of God. So church events, we have 2 of those. Okay, one of the things that has been scientifically proven with young girls, the number one thing that will help them more than anything is praying with them daily. You will not believe that, but it has been scientifically proven. They've done this with boys. They had a group of boys and they had a group of girls. It didn't make that huge of a difference for the boys, but when they took the young ladies and mom or dad prayed with the young lady every single day, said, what is on your heart? What can I pray for you about? It radically changed their life. And because for young ladies, their spirituality is huge for their emotional sanity. We have to prepare our young ladies for the dark night of the soul, because each one of us has someone who dies, someone close to us. We have friends who reject us. We have losses. And if we have not equipped our young ladies how to prepare for those dark nights of the soul, when those moments come, they will fall apart. And one of the things that young ladies have been described as now is they're very thick on the skin, but their heart is very fragile. And we want to create the exact opposite. We want young ladies who have a soft heart. Okay, hold on, let me see if I got that right. Their heart is hard, but their skin is very thin. So they're very easily wounded, very fragile, but their heart is hardened. And so what we need to do is flip that around, and there's a quote by Amy Carmichael. She says, keep a soft heart and thick skin. Honestly, that is a wonderful truth to live by, is to not be easily offended, but to be able to let things roll off your back, not let what people say, your peers, pierce into your heart, but to let your skin be thin, but thick, but your heart be soft to the things of people's pain and things to the Lord. Another thing is, I really encourage you to become a technology minimalist. I encourage you as a parent, if your phone has become your constant companion, just try this for 7 days. Put it away. Get Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, get it off your phone just for 7 days and watch what happens to your mind. Just do an experiment, because I don't think we realize how anxious we are with our cell phones. Constantly checking Facebook, constantly posting something, checking our texts, checking our emails, sending, this person this, that person that. So just take a 7-day fast. You do it for yourself first. See what happens to your mind and your body and emotionally and spiritually. And then if you can, go another 30 days. And during those 30 days, evaluate, how am I spending my time? What are my goals? And if your anxiety level goes down, you can imagine your daughter's anxiety levels. If you're anxious because of social media and your phone, constantly dinging and you're picking it up all the time, can you imagine what's happening to her mind, which is much younger than yours? Another thing is, evaluate your life, evaluate how you're using your time and make changes. Another thing too, a young girl who's involved in social media, she is performing, she's not living. And so she needs to realize that she cannot live a life to perform for everybody out there, but she needs to begin really living for the Lord. And then have her put her phone away at 10 and put it in the master bedroom. That way she can charge, she doesn't have to worry about it from 10 on. Just some very practical tips. So, nurture your daughters spiritually. We don't want to give them a small God syndrome. We want them to know that God is big. What happened is they did a study with 3,356 adolescent girls. 20% of these girls were less likely to be depressed if they were religiously involved during their prepubescent years. And for girls who completed puberty, the benefit roughly doubles, 40% less likely to be depressed than non-religious girls. Spirituality in a girl is huge. If she is involved in church and she has a mentor and she's praying with somebody and she's reading her Bible, they found out that it protects her from cigarettes, getting drunk, sex before marriage, and it actually disengaged them 20 times. Thank you so much. 20 times more likely from having sex outside of marriage. And they're 20 times less likely to be obsessed with their physical appearance. Because if you can think about what the messages are being sent. Thank you so much. Thank you. Oh, okay. Let's see. Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. So you can imagine, you think about the covers of the magazines. You just walk down in Walmart. The girls are constantly being bombarded with this. It is a devastating thing. Thank you. For them to see these images and think, I don't measure up. I will never look like that girl on that magazine. But you know, the truth is that girl doesn't look like that. They photoshopped her, they airbrushed her. She does not look like that. She doesn't even recognize herself. But the young girl who's walking by these magazine covers does not know that. Her mind may tell her that, but her heart longs to be as beautiful as that girl on that magazine cover. But if she has a spiritual void that is being met at church and with the Lord, then it begins to reduce that obsession for her. This is really interesting. She needs to discover the rhythms of a simpler life. The spirit cannot grow and be healthy if there's not enough silence, T.S. Eliot. And Dr. Sachs says that there's a school in Australia that it's an all-girls school, and for the 9th grade year, they take all the girls out into the woods and they live without cell phones, and they live in a house, all of the girls, and they live in a couple little cabins. They have to bring in firewood, chop firewood. They live a very simple life. They have to cook their own food. They live out in the forest there in Australia for a whole year, and the girls all get nervous about their 9th grade year where they have to go live out. But by the end, their lives are changed. Their lives are changed because they've learned the rhythm of a simple life. So if we can replicate and duplicate that for our young ladies, we can instill in them a simplicity in their hearts that they will recognize when the world is calling. They will recognize it and say, I don't want that, because that leads to anxiety. So teach them diligently the truths and wisdom that lead to a rich and full life in Christ. And Christy shared a lot of very practical, wonderful tips for how we can do that. And so that is the end for our girls' presentation.